All right, we're back here with the Heads Up Sports podcast. Ben is finally back. He's here. He's here, and we're ready to talk a lot of sports. There's a lot that's been happening in the past month or so, but with football, there's a lot that's been happening in the past week that we desperately need to talk about. How have you been, Ben? How's life been?
Life's been busy, life's been crazy, but as you can tell by my sweatshirt, my school's got a big game tonight. It'll be on ESPN, so I'm excited, and I got faculty seats.
There you go. That's exciting. Good
How
stuff. Good stuff.
have you been?
Well, oh, I've been good, just, on the interview trail for residency. So it's an exciting time. And starting to get colder up here in New York. So definitely definitely would be nice to be down there in that nice Mississippi heat.
Oh, I'm sweating through the sweatshirt right now. This is only for school spirit.
Absolutely. All right. So speaking of things that have happened recently, within the past, hour or so, there was a big trade with for those of you that are fans of New York football, and that is that the New York Giants have traded Toney to the Kansas City Chiefs for a third round pick and a sixth round pick. Big move for the Giants this year. They drafted him in 2021, I believe. Um, Missed out on Micah Parsons. They decided to go down in the draft and they had the opportunity to get Micah, and they decided Toney would be the better option. Dealt with a lot of injuries in their time during his time as a New York Giant, a lot of off the field struggles as well, and now he gets a new chance with the Chiefs. Ben, what do you think?
I mean, I love the move for the Chiefs. They get what was evaluated as a first round talent for a third and a sixth rounder. They kind of need that alpha in their receiving core outside of Kelsey. I think off of a very small sample size, Toney definitely has the electricity and the explosiveness to be that for them. But with the Giants, I mean, I just saw a tweet from Pro Football Focus yesterday that they have evaluated the Giants roster as the worst roster in the league, even though they're 6-1.
Wow.
So their receiving core was devoid of any talent. I mean, we are praying, as assuming you're a Giants fan, that Wandale Robinson is going to actually step up and be that guy because they have nothing. Their rookie tight end just got hurt. But Toney was providing nothing anyway. So uh, I think the proper way to evaluate this trade for the Giants is really what are they going to do with those two picks? Are they going to draft talent? I don't know. Are they going to use those as capital for another receiver or another piece to trade for this team now? I think that question ultimately depends on, if you're in the front office, how legitimate of a contender do you feel like this team is? Personally, I don't think they're that serious of a Super Bowl threat. So I would probably be, I don't know what I'd be doing. I think I probably would try and trade them for a better receiver because there are a lot of receivers on the market right now between Claypool, Cooks, Judy, DJ Moore. So I don't know. There's a lot of different avenues you could take it. I think the trade, that the obviously the legacy of the trade is not done. It'll depend on what the Giants do.
Absolutely. And I think from the Chiefs' point of view, when you're a talent-rich team, you could take chances like this, and you could really, give up your draft capital because you have so much talent already on your roster that you don't need that third round pick to hit. You just need that talented player. And Toney is a talented player. It's just a matter of if he could stay on the field, if he's really into the team and into the game. I think for him it's a good fit. I think going with Mahomes, who else would you want as your quarterback, first of all, other than Josh Allen, maybe?
No one.
Yeah. And then, culture wise, it's a culture where it's a football hungry city, it's a football hungry team where they hold themselves to a high caliber. And I think that's something that he needs. I think he needs to be pushed a little bit. And I think having someone who he is forced to respect with Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, I think it'll drive him to really work hard and to make sure that he gets back on the field and is doing everything he can to succeed on the field. So I really like the move for the Chiefs in that regard. For the Giants, I also like it in that I'm surprised they were able to get a third and a sixth for him. You know, a lot of times, no matter where someone was drafted, if they're drafted first overall, 30th overall, if you're a first round pick, for some reason, the second the day the draft is over, if you make a trade, they're like their value goes down so much because they're just already on a team. It makes no sense. But a third round pick is like you know, the sweetest deal, you know, the best thing you could have. So it really doesn't make sense half the time. But the fact they were able to get a third round draft pick for someone who played 12 out of his 24 possible games and has been, you know, injury prone his early career so far, I think it was a good move for them. And really, with it not being a draft pick of the current GM, I think that, you know, they didn't really think it was a scheme fit. They didn't think he fit within the new team. If you could get good value for him, get rid of him and get that value back.
And to your point, I agree with all that. To your point about the movement of Toney to Kansas City, a different scene, a football hungry city. I think even context aside from moving from New York to Kansas City, we don't really know what was going on behind closed doors over there. It's a weird situation. Um, but from Toney's perspective, I would imagine you're looking at it like if I mess this up too, I'm probably not getting a second NFL contract because
Right.
I can't just sit around with all these random hamstring injuries that may or may not exist every single week. So I think that this is the best possible spot for him to get his career back on track because this floundering is weird. It is just weird.
Yeah, absolutely. So going off of that, you know, I think we could go without the discussion of are the Chiefs legit or are the Chiefs, you know, good. We all know that already.
Yeah.
But from something you talked about before, and I kind of, you know, got where your answer is going to go. But with this Giants team 6-1, where do you think their future lies? What do you think their outlook is, especially now after this trade?
I mean, I don't think this trade is much of a needle mover from them. I don't think it really changes their season long outlook as currently playing out. Like I think for a significant change for their trajectory this season, they would have to move those picks for one of the receivers that I mentioned because they need somebody. They've been winning off of coaching, defense, and Saquon. They're big three. So how far can that really get you? Can you beat the Eagles? I don't know about that. I don't think so. Uh, we'll get to these teams a bit later, but the Bucks, can you beat the Bucks? I don't know. Can you beat the Packers? I feel a little better about that, but I don't know. I'm sure you could keep going down the list. The NFC West, you got the Rams. They've looked shaky. I still would take them over the Giants. It's just it's such a hard thing because the sample sizes are still so small, even through a full NFL season. And to be a contender, you have to be better than your peers. I just don't see that with the Giants.
Right. And most of their wins so far have been one possession games that could have gone either way. Granted, you know, that's part of the culture and part of a winning team. You know, most NFL games are one possession games. And it's a testament to what you were saying. Their coaching. Brian Dable is a fantastic coach. If he keeps this up, and there's no reason he shouldn't win coach of the year. Um, but they need to keep it up. And that's another thing with the Jets and the Giants that we will need to see. So going off of that, we'll jump to the New York Jets. Um, they are on currently, I believe, a 4 game winning streak. They're 5-2 on the year, and it's something that I'm very happy to see. Last week they defeated the Denver Broncos in a very scrappy defensive game where a lot of injuries happened for the Jets that game. Elijah Vera Tucker hurt for that game, now out for the season. Our best offensive lineman, bright spot, second year in the league. He was playing wherever we needed him to. We drafted him as a right guard. He played left tackle. He played right guard. He played right tackle. He played anywhere that was needed with all the injuries on the offensive line. And now he's out for the year. Brees Hall was becoming close to a shoe in this early on for offensive rookie of the year. You know, as much of a shoe in as you can be. Granted, Kenneth Walker for the Seahawks, also a very talented player, would have been tough to see. You know, who would have won. But now Brees Hall has torn his ACL and has a slight meniscus tear as well, and he's out for the season. Tough blow for the Jets. What do you think about them so far?
I mean, so far so good, obviously, but you have to be worried with both of those injuries because that entire offense has been moving through the running backs, and Brees Hall is the best one. The guy he came into this season as probably the best prospect since at least Jonathan Taylor, but based on his 40 time, his size, his catching ability, you're comparing him to guys like Saquon, Zeke coming out of college. It's a tough blow. And then you consider that you lost your best offensive lineman too. The run game is going to be worse. There's no way around that. And the passing game has not been what's been winning the Jets games. And sadly, you win football by scoring more points than the other team. So there is going to have to be some big schematic change. I don't know if they have the talent to support that. These are two huge losses for them. But defensively, I mean, Sauce Gardner is looking like an amazing pick.
Absolutely. I mean, he won defensive rookie, not defensive rookie of the week this week, but he also won defensive player of the week for the entire AFC. So, I mean, I believe for some reason Brett Ripien decided to throw the ball at Sauce Gardner 10 times and I think only had one completion. It was for like 3 yards or something like that. I just don't get what went into him doing that. Their defense is legit. There's no way around it. There is so much talent on that defense, especially with Sauce Gardner as part of it. With him and DJ Reed was another steal of a signing. I mean, PFF has graded him out. Granted, PFF grades, I don't completely buy them all the time, but PFF marked DJ Reed and Sauce Gardner as two of the top five cornerbacks in the entire NFL. And those are the people that are starting every week, locking up every single wide receiver that they faced. Jamar Chase hasn't done anything. Um, no one on the Steelers did anything. Cortland Sutton didn't do anything. So there's a lot of wide receivers that they've faced that are legit wide receivers, and they've really shut them all down. And when you have a secondary like that, it's tough to beat them, especially with this pass heavy league that we're in nowadays. And then when you add in Quinnen Williams having an Aaron Donald like season, and you have Carl Lawson, who's top five in the league in QB pressures, it's a scary defense. It's a scary, scary defense. There's not many holes there. So they're gonna have to keep on relying on that defense because it is going to be tough on the offense. And the reason because of that is Brees Hall being out. There's no way around it. And another thing we didn't touch on was Elijah Moore wasn't playing in that game because he decided that he wanted to request a trade after in the middle of a 3-game winning streak. He said, I'm not getting the ball enough, not enough targets, which was fair. The game before that he requested the trade, he had 0 targets, which was a little bit strange. What did you think about Elijah Moore's trade request and the timing of it?
So this might be a hot take. And I think this may just be a product of me getting a little older, starting to kind of look at my life and understanding that, I love what I do, but I also got to make sure the money's coming in. Like all of these players are playing for their next contract, always. And I can understand Elijah Moore looking at his role in the offense currently, the offense as a whole, uh, the way that he kind of started the season, the emergence of Garrett Wilson. I could see him looking at it and thinking to himself, I need that money. Like these players put themselves out on the field every week, risking huge blows to their body. Um, I understand wanting to look out for your money. So I don't personally have an issue with it. The timing optically looks very bad. It's very clear what his priorities are. The sports fan in all of us disagrees with this because we want to believe that all of these players are about winning first. Um, and my thing is, I don't know. Like we're on the outside looking in. I don't know how these executives and these coaches and players that aren't on that team. Well, I'm sure I have a feeling I know how the players may look at it, but like execs, front office members, I don't know how they see that. Has Elijah Moore been a locker room cancer? I don't believe so. Do I blame Elijah Moore for wanting to make sure that the income's coming in? No. So yeah, the timing's weird. They said they're not going to trade him. So they might think internally that it's a salvageable relationship. But I don't know. I feel like I might be in the minority with that outlook on it. I'm curious to know what you think about Elijah Moore's trade request.
Yeah, I think the parts of what you say are very valid. I think, NFL, a lot of people say stands for not for long.
Yeah.
You have a short career. You need to really make sure that you get your money while you're there because that's your career. That's your money for the rest of your life. It's very important to make sure that you get yours. However, this was, one game where he didn't get targets. Granted, the first couple of games, he was getting targeted, maybe not as high as he would have wanted, but you're a second year player in the league. Denzel Mims is a third year player in the league who's drafted in the second round. Also, he's an active, he's a healthy and active scratch every week.
Mm-hmm.
Elijah Moore's on the field every play, so he has the chance to get the ball every play. It's not like he's sitting on the bench. That's my one thought. Second thought is with Elijah Moore, like the timing just like doesn't make sense that you're going to be very upset and trying to break up the locker room when you are in the middle of a winning streak. And in all those wins, they were like low passing games where Wilson was really only throwing the ball 10, 15 times because the run was working so well. So it's not like, they're throwing the ball 40 times and he wasn't getting the ball. It was just wasn't working with the system and the way things were going. Within his first 2 years, I think I was looking at some stats. Some of the top wide receivers in the league, their first 2 years, had the same amount of targets and receptions as him at this point. So it's not like he hasn't been getting the ball throughout his career. It's just like a 1 or 2 game stint when you're going up against some of the best pass defenses in the league, some of the best pass rushing teams in the league. And you have to just take it when that happens. There's going to be times in the season where you're hot, times when you're cold. And you have to really and say, what am I here to? I know I need to get my money, but that'll, if you believe in yourself and your talent, you know that throughout the season there'll be games where you'll get those 100-yard games. So that's
Mm-hmm.
my thought on it. I think that with him, they're not going to trade him. I think that it would be dumb to trade him at this point because especially Corey Davis was hurt last week. I don't know if he'll play this week. Brees Hall being hurt, that's another issue. Granted, obviously he's not a receiver, but the target share should go up for Elijah Moore, and it very much can. LaFleur is a very good offensive coordinator. He should be able to scheme him in. I don't know why he hasn't already because he is very talented. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, very fair points. I didn't consider, first of all, I didn't consider the fact that he is only a second year player. So what leverage are you making this trade request with, bro?
Exactly.
With what
Exactly.
leverage? And yeah, I mean, the context does matter. Like you are playing these teams that are going to do you up well. What are you really going to be able to do? I mean, I think it's okay to have down games those weeks. I guess the question is it a matter of impatience or is it a testament to his belief in the offense as a whole, in Zach Wilson, to put him in a situation where he's going to be successful? That is a good point, too. I think the real part that's compelling to me about what you just said is like, dude, you're there all the time. Mims has not been on the field. So you can get open. You can get those targets. Does that validate Elijah Moore more? Or, you know,
Yeah, that's a fair point. That's something we were kind of talking about before we went on air was is Zach Wilson the guy? And it's still too early to tell from my opinion, my point of view. He's really only played 17 games, I believe, at this point. So that's really just one full season, with all the injuries he's had. But on games when he's pressured, he's the lowest rated quarterback in the league when he's pressured. When he has time in the pocket, he's rated this season as one of the best in the league. So it's one of those things where he really needs to improve there. I don't know if that's a rookie or second year kind of thing, but it just needs to get better soon because if not, I'm starting to get to the point where if he plays like he did against the Packers and against the Broncos, I think they need to move on. But there's a whole season left of games, so there's still plenty of time for him to improve on that. He's still very young. I think he has some of the most talent in the league when it comes to evading rushers. I think no one else really is able to avoid the sack the way he does. Granted, it doesn't help when there's 3 free rushers every play. So then, you evade two and then the third comes. Um, But he's not throwing those interceptions when that happens anymore. He's throwing it away, but he needs to find a way to turn those into completions, move the chains. So I don't know if you've been watching a lot of Zach Wilson, but I was wondering what you thought of him as well.
I mean, there's been nothing impressive. I will say that. I mean, yeah, his ability to be evasive is good. Doesn't help when you can't make plays mid evasion tactics.
Exactly.
And I think really like if you look at the other quarterbacks that were drafted around him, Trey Lance, the team already committed to him as a starter, despite Jimmy Garoppolo being there. So that's kind of a upward trajectory for his stocks. Mac Jones, like at least at first, it seemed like there was a lot of confidence in him on behalf of Belichick. So there's at least that sense of like he's won the team over. Fields is starting to get better. That Bears offense is starting to
Fields,
take
yeah,
off.
he was good.
Yep. And then who's the other quarterback? There's a fifth one, wasn't there? I don't know if there was.
No, I think there is. I
Oh,
can't think of it.
is it Trevor Lawrence?
Oh yeah, of course, Trevor Lawrence. Yes,
He's also improving. So with Zach Wilson, it's like I kind of feel like overall the good things we look at with him are a couple of flashes from last year. He's shown nothing this year that would significantly raise the ceiling of the Jets. So I'm not like, if I'm a Jets fan, I don't have my pitchfork ready or anything like that. I'm not ready to kick him out of town, but I'm certainly not convinced. Like we need to see
correct.
more. Uh, he's got this season. He's got the rookie contract. I don't
And
know.
it's still only year two,
Yeah,
and I think we're at the point where you could lean one way or the other on this tightrope, but you haven't fallen off one way or the other yet. I think that there's still room to wiggle one way or the other, and I think that throughout the season he probably will go both ways. Against the Steelers in the fourth quarter, he was electric. I think he was 10 of 11 or something like that for 100 something yards with game winning drives. I mean, but other than that one quarter against the Steelers, I mean, he's been average, below average, and other times. There hasn't been a lot of flashes in the second year. It is still early, so we'll see. But I want to go on to something that you mentioned of Mac Jones. So
Mm.
the Jets and the Patriots will play each other this week on Halloween weekend, which is a little
A little
nerve
spooky.
wracking. Last time, the only thing Halloween I could think of is seeing ghosts, and that happened to Sam Darnold against the Patriots on Monday Night Football. I was there at that game in person, and that was horrible. Um, so they play each other the day before Halloween in East Rutherford. Jets versus Patriots. The Patriots have already announced that Mac Jones will be the starter. Even after last week, Mac Jones was taken out after the first quarter, and Bailey Zappi took over. So Bailey Zappi was pretty electric after taking over. I'm surprised that they decided to go back to Mac Jones, but it makes sense. What do you think about Mac Jones, Bailey Zappi, and the future of the Patriots?
Hmm. The future is what it is. I don't think that offense really has a ton of talent. I think that it's effectively a rebuilding team. Um, I kind of feel like the Zappy thing is a bit of a non-story. Like however good Zappy is, I'm not concerned about it. I think this is Belichick continuing to be his calculated, unorthodox self and really trying to light a fire under Mac Jones and let him know like this starting spot is not guaranteed for you. Like you need to play to earn it. So I think this is going to be more. I think the story here, that like the compelling narrative of this is how does Mac Jones respond at the end? I don't think Mac Jones is going to be throwing chairs and making a scene in the locker room and demanding that the team is his or anything like that. But will this elevate his play? If it doesn't, and he continues to be of the quality that he would get pulled out of the game, then maybe Zappy is a little bit more of a story. But at the end of the day, Mac Jones was hurt. The offense was kind of moving through Zappy. So there's already that existing momentum of Zappy kind of playing with the starters anyway. I think this is kind of an awkward in between moment where the real starter isn't. He's essentially like he's a rookie second year. he's not that much drastically better than the backup. So I think this is kind of an awkward middle phase for getting Mac Jones back on track. My question is, how does Mac Jones respond?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's one we'll find out on Sunday against a very good Jets defense. So, it's gonna really be a challenge for Mac Jones, which is, you know, it's rare to see a Bill Belichick quarterback controversy. Obviously that's something he really never had to worry about. Even when he had to slightly worry about it, they traded away Jimmy G. So I really don't know if Bill's handling it exactly the right way. I think it was a little premature to take Mac Jones out after 1 quarter of play after you just came back from injury. And then, if you're going to do that, and then Zappy was pretty good after he came in for the rest of the game. So you're going back to Mac Jones now, and now it's just confusing the entire team. I'm confused. I can't imagine how Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi are feeling about all of this. It's just if I'm in Mac Jones' shoes, I don't have a lot of confidence right now that the team trusts me. And if you got to be playing free flowing football if you're going to be good in the NFL. And I think that he might be a little too afraid now that if he makes one mistake, he's going to be pulled from the game again. And that's not something you want for a quarterback. You want to thrive. You want them to be, stress free when they're out there because it's stressful enough when there's 300-pound men running in your face about to tackle you. So we'll see what happens. I think that Mac Jones will not be very good this week against the Jets defense, but I don't know if the Jets will win this game because of Bill Belichick and his defensive schemes against young quarterbacks. But that's neither here nor there. We'll see what happens there. Any other thoughts about Jets Patriots on Sunday?
Well, I just want to say it's interesting you refer to the Jimmy G controversy because if you recall, it was Belichick that wanted Brady out of there,
That's
allegedly.
true. That's true.
So he just might be, yeah, I mean, like I said, he's just doing unorthodox Belichick stuff. This just might be his own rogue way of handling the situation. And that's true. It probably isn't the best way. You definitely don't want your quarterback to be shaky in confidence at this point in their career with that early career rookie contract learning curve. And you also don't want him to be nervous against the spooky Jets defense. You better knock on wood right now. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say.
Doing it right now. Yeah, I got to make sure. I'm sure last time I believe Jets played the Patriots, Zach Wilson got injured and then he was out for a couple weeks. So something bad always seems to happen when the Jets and Patriots play each other. So I'm looking forward for this game to be finished. I don't even want to watch it at this point. Uh, I'm not a fan of that team. Ooh, okay. So we talked a little bit about Jets Patriots. One thing we didn't mention was after Brees Hall getting hurt, the Jets did make another trade for James Robinson from the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's coming off a year where he had a torn Achilles and is coming back in for the Jaguars. He was pretty effective, I think, at least for the Jaguars this year. However, they have a rising star in Travis Etienne. So they said, we could get something for James Robinson. Let's trade him to a team that needs a running back, which the Jets were. And they gave up a 6th-round pick, which is conditional, can go up to a 5th-round pick if he runs like for 300 yards, which he probably will. So it'll probably be a 5th-round pick. To me, I like the move. I think it shows that Joe Douglas believes in his team, the GM of the Jets. I think that he will, wouldn't have done this trade if he didn't believe that there's a chance the Jets can make the playoffs. I think James Robinson could be a good contributor for the future. I just don't know how much of a contributor he'll be. Depends on his health and really how his Achilles stands up. So we'll see what happens there. What do you think of the James Robinson trade yourself?
I like it. I think it's interesting. Michael Carter is a solid running back. He was very solid last year. I think going back to the question of the legitimacy of Zach Wilson, uh, this offense was moving through the running backs, and James Robinson is not Brees Hall. And James Robinson is having a completely medically unprecedented comeback. I thought he was done. And it's not surprising the Jaguars moved off him because ETN, a 1st-round pick, James Robinson, undrafted rookie out of the draft. So clearly no real commitment to Robinson. Now he's going into a new situation where things were moving through the running backs before. The guy's talented. I think the team wants to continue to move it through the running backs instead of gamble on the passing game and moving things through Zach Wilson. So, my biggest takeaway was I think this is a bit of a reflection on how the team is looking at Zach Wilson so far. I don't know if James Robinson is someone they are going to be willing to commit to, especially with Brees Hall eventually coming back, although the injury is concerning despite advancements in sports medicine. I don't know. I like the trade. I think it's going to keep the Jets competitive for this year.
Yeah, and another thing I like about it too, going off what you were saying, was that James Robinson is still very young. You know, he was an undrafted free agent, like you said, and because of that, in his contract, one, he is cheap. Two, he's going to be with the team again next year. So if Brees Hall is not available right away early on, or if we need to ease him back into it, you still have the 1-2 punch of Michael Carter and James Robinson. So I think for this year and next year, it's a good move for this team. And I think to have those three guys as running backs on your team is, it can't be a bad thing.
No,
That's all I could say.
it's a crowded room full of studs. That is nasty.
Absolutely.
That's probably the best running back room in the league.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's up there between them, maybe the Browns, who may be moving off Kareem Hunt soon. We'll see.
Yep, that's
Um,
true.
yeah, so we'll see what happens. All right, so that's it for the Jets and the Patriots. So now another um group of quarterbacks who, you know, are around in the league, been around for a long time, and now are seeing possibly the ends of their career, possibly struggling, and this is happening for both of them. So Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady, both their teams are struggling so far early this season. What is going on? Ben, we could start with either one, the Packers or the Buccaneers. Tell me what you think.
Well, I think there are I think both have simple explanations. I don't know which one you want to go into first, but my quick breakdown of each before kind of going into it is Aaron Rodgers, I think, has no weapons. Alan Lazard is not a number one receiver on a competitive NFL team. I don't care what anyone says.
I agree.
And this offensive line, the Buccaneers had a lot of injuries going into the season. The offensive line lost a couple of its best players before the season started. Tom Brady is not someone that's going to win you the game on his legs. This rushing offense is terrible compared to last year. I mean, their rushing productivity is down so much. I think that we're just kind of seeing the consequences of a team that isn't really in rhythm following such significant injuries to the offense straight off the preseason into week one. And they've had receivers in and out all season long. They're just getting Godwin back. Julio hurt, Gage hurt and disappointing. Evans suspended for that one game. It's like a carousel. Like people are just coming in and out with them.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more, especially with the Packers of having really no wide receiver weapons. You know, Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon can only take you so far when you stack the box all day on them.
mm-hmm.
And the, Alan Lazard really isn't it. You know, I think on a lot of other teams, he's a second or third wide receiver at most, and that's just being honest. If he was as good as people say he's supposed to be, Aaron Rodgers wouldn't be struggling right now, and the Packers would have a lot better of a record instead of losing to the Jets, Giants, and Commanders 3 weeks in a row. You know, it's just it is what it is. You know, granted, like those teams have solid defenses, but you're Aaron Rodgers, you're the Green Bay Packers who have consistently been able to really get above that when you have the talent, and they just don't seem to have it this year. Same with the Buccaneers, a lot of injury troubles, a lot of things of that sort. So going off of that, do you think that either of these teams can make the playoffs still, or are either of them still contenders and still able to thrive in the NFL this season?
um, I'm gonna pull up the standings real quick just so I'm looking at kind of the lay of the land over here. Off the top of my head, I'm gonna say I do still think the Bucks can. I think it's a weak division. Um, I think that they're very talented. I think that they just have kind of some momentum loss off of injury to gain back. And thankfully, when your biggest competition is a team in the Falcons who throw the ball at a rate of a team that's playing in the 40s, you kind of have a safety cushion in getting back on track. The Packers are only 2 games behind the Vikings and they're tied with the Bears. Um, they could make the playoffs, but I'm not feeling great about it. I think the Vikings are definitively better. I think the offensive approach of let Aaron Rodgers play hero ball doesn't work when your receivers are Alan Lazard, Romeo Dobbs, Christian Watson. Like he's not even playing all the time. And it's like, okay, we're looking at those guys. The Buccaneers have Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Julio Jones, Russell Gage, like much better names. I mean, you can go around the NFC. We're talking about Alan Lazard and Romeo Dobbs. Can I interest you in Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen? Can I interest you in AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goddard? Like the Packers to me just aren't talented enough on the offensive end to be a serious playoff contender at all.
Yeah, I really don't think that they appreciated how valuable Devontae Adams was for them. And they really, should have, it's easy to say on the outside without knowing the situation, but they should have been able to make that work in some way if you have that good of a star on your team. But I think that both these teams can be okay. Um, I think that the Buccaneers, I think, could bounce back a little easier than the Packers. I think for the Packers to bounce back, they would just need to make some trades. And I don't know if they're willing to mortgage their future for it. It depends on how much they really value Aaron Rodgers this late in his career, and if it's going to be worth it to trade high draft capital for a DJ Moore or maybe an Elijah Moore or maybe another talented wide receiver. So if they do that, they could be in a better spot. But I don't think either of these teams right now are, like you said, in a good enough spot to be Super Bowl contenders. I think the Buccaneers maybe could turn it around. Tom Brady always has that magic to do it. But this year just seems different for Brady, with all the things he's dealing with at home. And, it's hard enough to deal with those things he's dealing with at home in the first place, let alone, you know, to deal with that when you're on a struggling football team. So,
Yeah, and at the end of the day, he's 45.
yeah,
Like, we're going to try and win a Super Bowl with a 45-year-old quarterback. That is not a safe play. I'm not saying move off Brady off of last season, but I mean, come on. Like, Father Time is undefeated. Had to
yeah,
happen at some point. This might be it.
yeah, absolutely. And, it goes back to I think it would have been a better move for Brady to retire last year. He was still playing fantastically and, ride off into the sunset. You did lose there, in the playoffs, but man, you look like you were always going to be, prime Tom Brady. And now, people are seeing that he is a human being. TB12, is a system that works, but, like you said, Father Time is undefeated. So we'll see if he can, pull another one off from Father Time this year, but I don't see it happening.
Nope. We were deprived of all these old man yells at cloud conversations from Skip Bayless about how 60-year-old Tom Brady could beat any team in the NFL over the next 10 years. So it's too bad he took that away from us too, but see what
Yeah,
happens.
yeah, it is a shame. All right, before we switch to basketball, I wanted to give you the opportunity to talk about your team, the Pittsburgh Steelers. They are, running it with their new quarterback, Kenny Pickett. I wanted to know what you thought of Kenny Pickett and what do you think of the Steelers this year? Do you think there's a chance for them to make the playoffs? Do you think they're, contenders in any way, or is this still a rebuild?
Well, let's get the easy question out of the way first. Are they a contender for the playoffs? Absolutely not. This team's bad. Like the offensive line is bad. It's so bad that we have no real rushing offense. The defense has not been great. We miss TJ Watt. TJ Watt is a huge part of the defense, obviously. So I think by the time TJ Watt comes back, it's going to be too little too late. There are much better teams in the AFC. I think at our best, we don't match up with them well. But Kenny Pickett, he's looked solid. He hasn't looked amazing. He's not Mitch Trubisky. He's a gamer. Pickett is a better mobile quarterback. He's someone that will actually look to make the play coming out of the pocket. I think he's better at that than Trubisky is. I think Trubisky was effectively good at nothing. I mean, like after week 2 or 3, I think the writing was on the wall for Trubisky. I almost feel like him being named the starter in the first place was performative and to get Pickett to practice harder, or it was to buy Pickett more time to get acclimated to work with the starters. I don't think there was ever any real hope that the team would move forward with Trubisky. If I said that in a previous recording, I was deluding myself with this obvious truth. Um, so I like Pickett. I think there's still time for him to grow. Of course, obviously it's his rookie year. Um, he hasn't been amazing. He hasn't been that bad. I think the first game with the 3 interceptions was a bit flukish. I don't think any of those were his fault. And yeah, I'm content with him.
Yeah, and going off that game with 3 interceptions, I called that he was going to come in after halftime, and look what happened. He came in right after halftime against the Jets. And yeah, those 3 interceptions, they happened. Those were like a little bit of rookie interceptions, a little bit of pressing. The last one especially was on a Hail Mary.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't fault him on that.
Mm-hmm.
And he provided that spark in that game against the Jets that really, you know, made it seem like the Steelers were going to win that game. And that's what you want from a rookie quarterback, just to give you that spark, give you that fire to think that you can win any game, that you could have a game that's going to be, an excellent one for him. And with those rookies, you're going to have those highs, you're going to have those lows, and you're going to even have those games where it's just a little bit of a plateau. Granted, it's kind of what's happening with Zach Wilson right now. We'll see if that goes for the future. But he's still young. Kenny Pickett, he has a lot of growing to do, and the fact that he's able to provide some sparks now are a sign that he's at least an NFL ready quarterback in that regard. So that's all you could really ask for, in my opinion, out of a rookie quarterback. I think nowadays we ask a little bit too much about rookies, of our rookies, and it's one of those things where, you give an offensive lineman a year or two and say, oh, well, they're not supposed to be that good early. But when it comes to a quarterback, they need to be good right away. So
Yep,
it's just,
that's true.
it's part of the NFL. It's a tough league to survive in. But I think Kenny Pickett will be one of those guys that survives, hopefully as a starter for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But if not, he'll still be in the league for a long time, I think.
I hope so. I hope so.
All right. So I think that's it for our NFL talk today. NBA season has recently started. Both our teams are 3-1. The New York Knicks and the Boston Celtics. For those of you who don't remember, those are our teams that we're a fan of. It's it's always a little tense talking NBA with you because we're fans of teams that don't really like each other.
Mm-hmm.
But it's fun. So what do you think of the Celtics so far this year?
They look good. The offense looks really good. I think Brogdon is showing how significant of an ad he is coming off the bench. I know it's a little weird he's coming off the bench, but that's a good player to be coming off your bench. Um, last year I don't feel like we had a whole lot of spark off the bench. Derek White kind of looked like he could be that guy before the trade with the Spurs. He's still a very good role player, but I think Brogdon gives a lot more. Jalen's been fine. Robert Williams has definitely missed, especially with the defense, which I'll get to in a second. But Tatum is balling out.
He's a
Um,
beast.
he's a beast. He got Player of the Week for the East in Week 1. Um, Obviously a knee-jerk reaction, but I would assume that this is what an MVP campaign beginning looks like.
I was just gonna say that.
He's at least hopped in the chat. I don't think Tatum was really a name that was brought up to the degree of someone like Luka or Embiid on his supposed revenge year after last year. But the momentum is certainly there with Tatum. This is all like mushy sort of typical sports media talk, but in the post-game interviews, he seems more dialed in and less complacent with, average play than he has in the past. And with everything the Celtics kind of went through in the offseason, it's encouraging. Now, the defense is bad. Like, the defense does not look good right now. I anticipate that getting better with Robert Williams. I think Horford at his age will have his good days sometimes where he's kind of a needle mover for the defense. But at the end of the day, Udoka was a defensive coach first. We lost him, and the team is going to have to learn a new defensive scheme. I don't know how much of the playbook came upstairs from Brad Stevens, but Joe Mazzulla is going to have to get this team to lock in the way they were last year and learn whatever new defensive scheme they're going to be picking up on. Plus, again, Robert Williams, that is a big loss for the defense. So,
Yeah, that's tough. Definitely a few early defensive losses for this team, and a big one that we didn't talk about early on that was big in the sports world was Ime Udoka being suspended for the year. Um, I believe that was an internal suspension, right, from the Celtics themselves. Um, so with him being out, and do you think that the defense is going to struggle the entire year because of his absence, or do you think this will just be a temporary blip? It's 4 games into the year, and that they'll be able to come back from this. What do you think about the loss of Udoka and what it'll mean for the future of the season for the Celtics?
I mean, the loss of Udoka is crazy. Definitely not something that anybody saw coming. Um, from a basketball perspective, he did what Brad Stevens couldn't do last year, which was forget X and O's. Like, we're just going to start winning games. He got the guys to play more intensely. It seems like there was way more buy-in from within the locker room as far as like execution goes. The defensive system that Udoka kind of implemented was much more aggressive. And, especially at the beginning of the playoffs, namely against the Nets, the Celtics were doing a really good job of forcing those turnovers. Their win rate in the second half of the season last year was insane. They were the best team in the league. Um, but he's not there anymore. And I don't know how much of the playbook, how much of the schematic approach is going to carry over. I don't know. They believe in Missoula. Missoula's been an assistant with the team for a while. Um, we got to see what he can do. He hasn't been a head coach yet. So I think it's a significant loss from that perspective. I mean, uh, obviously, is it the right thing to do? It looks like yes, it was the right thing to do to get rid of Udoka. I don't even know if that suspension was real. They were probably going to fire him once all the legal stuff was taken care of. But yeah, I mean, I still believe in the Celtics team. Do I think we're better than the Bucks? No, but I think we might be the next up. I still think the team will be very good. I think the defense can bounce back given the talent that the Celtics have. Like Marcus Smart is still there, Tatum is still there, Jalen is still there, Derek White is still there. Brogdon is a solid defender. Robert Williams is coming back. I'm just naming names. You know what I mean? I believe in the team. I think that's kind of a good end sentence for my stream of consciousness there.
Yeah, no, I mean, I completely agree. I mean, this is a team, granted, they weren't expected to get there, but they made it to the NBA Finals last year, which was huge. And I think that was something that with a very young team, which the Celtics were, other than, your few veteran role players, I think it was something that they needed. And, sometimes, getting to the playoffs is great and it gives you that push, but getting to the finals and losing really gives you that push to say we're that close, we can make it. And I think that could be part of the spark that has made Jason Tatum go on this, it, really great first week. Hopefully, it lasts for him. Um, and this is a team that was very good in the first place, and they've added, like you said, Malcolm Brogdon, and I think that for their future, you need to make sure the coaching is still good, the defense is still there, and I think that they could compete with anyone in this league. And I think that when it comes to the playoffs, they could really have a chance to make it back to the NBA Finals. So all you need is that shot, and you just got to take care of your business once you get that shot. So I think that they're in a good position now.
Mm-hmm. And
Another team. Oh, yep. Go for it.
I was just gonna say the really interesting thing with this Celtics team is I think since Tatum's gotten in the league, he's only not made the Eastern Conference Finals, the finals like once.
Yeah.
This is a guy that's come in every year so close, not necessarily the leader every time, but you're beginning to smell what's cooking in the kitchen. You know what I mean?
Right.
And last year, that was the closest he got. I think that's got to feel pretty bad, especially when all eyes were on you. He was playing with some type of fracture in his arm, but he did not play well in the finals. I think the fire's lit under his belly. Just to
Absolutely. Yeah.
support what you said.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think he's going to be, I think, in the top three for MVP this year. Whether or not he sustains it to stay as number one, we'll see. But I think right now, 1 week into the season, he's the league's MVP. So we'll see if that continues. Now for a team that's also good so far, but I don't think they're as exciting or as high of a ceiling as the Celtics is my New York Knicks. They're a team that looked good in the beginning of the season last year. They really petered out as the season went on last year, and they didn't even make the playoffs, even with the expanded playoff format that they added. So what did they do? They added Jalen Brunson, which was at the time, I thought it was good. Didn't think it was going to be the best move ever. They missed out on Donovan Mitchell, which we talked about this on a podcast, I believe, earlier this year, and I was actually happy that we didn't get Donovan Mitchell, because if you get one, I'd rather have one or the other of Brunson or Mitchell. I think if you have both of them, then you're just going to have no defense on your team at all. Granted, the Knicks really haven't had much great defense this year. I mean, each game has gone to like the 110s and things like that. I don't know if that's just the current NBA. I feel like an old person, saying that, oh, the NBA used to be so different with defense. But yeah, I just feel like defense is just so different nowadays. But anyways, back to where I was supposed to go with this. Is that the Knicks definitely added pieces. Tom Thibodeau this year has decided to play Cam Reddish, even though we traded for him last year, and then he decided to just basically keep him on the bench stowed away. And I think early in this year, it's only 4 games. He's really shown that he has some talent and is a good role player off the bench. And I think it's been a good add to have him this year. It feels like we got another free agent getting Cam Reddish on this team. Mitchell Robinson's been great. Jalen Brunson, who I just mentioned. I mean, last game against the Hornets, he was fantastic. Very efficient, great with assists. Just great all around player. And I think he's going to be that guy who makes Julius Randle even better and makes the ball flow more than Julius Randle tends to do the mellow ISO ball type of play that the Knicks have seen for the past 15 years. So I think that adding Jalen Brunson and some more offense in the right way, it will be better for this team. Thibodeau, I've never been. I'm a big fan of him as a coach. I've never been a fan of, like, for scheme wise. I haven't been a fan of the way that he rotates his players. Obi Toppin still some games only gets 10 minutes. That's something that is inexcusable to me. Does he make mistakes? Absolutely. But the only way he's going to stop is if he plays more. So, I mean, he has that talent. It's tough when you have Julius Randle, so I get it. But you need to get Obi Toppin in the game more. And you need to play Cam Reddish, which he's finally doing this year after not doing it last year. And it's proving to be successful. So do more of that. What do you think of the New York Knicks so far this season after my little rant on them?
No, I mean, they're you're bringing up a lot of good points. I think the biggest change with the Knicks of substance is the fact that they got a legit point guard, because even when they were playing the Hawks, like, Derrick Rose was probably their best point guard. Now, last year, Derrick Rose was probably their only, like, average to above average playmaker in the backcourt. So that's, given Thibodeau's, how his teams have historically done, that is a recipe for a complete disaster. Randall's a fine playmaker for his position. He's not someone like Jokic who's going to elevate your offense in the front court with playmaking. He's just not. So I think Brunson, who the contract is fine, it's front loaded. So you're paying the most for him now. When he becomes really valuable, you may be paying less for him. I think Brunson was a good get. I think he was a good fit. He's played well. It's a good team. Mitchell Robinson's good. RJ Barrett is a little disappointing to start the season so far. I feel like a lot of I don't want to say hate, but I feel like people write him off without thinking about how young he is as a player. I think he could still turn it around. The Knicks seem to think that he could turn it around based on the contract they signed him to. I think it's a fine team. We'll see if Brunson can continue to kind of shoulder the load of an entire offense. That isn't something he's been asked yet to do, because he's really just been a supplementary spark plug piece next to Luka. He is an undersized guard. Take it from a Celtics fan, from the Isaiah Thomas days. That does not always work out well. But we'll see how it plays out. I mean, you got to like what you've seen so far. You got to like what you've seen.
Absolutely. And the thing with this Knicks team, same for the past, 2 years or so, I feel like it's a team that has a lot of depth, but not a lot of star power. And that's something that, if we want to take that next step, we'll probably need to get more star power. I think the issue last year was, as you were alluding to a little bit, was that Julius Randle was kind of forced to be the whole offense last year. And he kind of just went into this hero ball kind of mode throughout the season, and it really teams figured it out. Teams just figured it out how to play the Knicks and how to beat the Knicks, and that's something we really can't do this year as the New York Knicks. I think that's something that they won't do with adding Jalen Brunson, a real point guard, to the team. So it makes the future look bright. And when you have Emmanuel quickly coming off the bench, Derrick Rose off the bench, you have Cam Reddish off the bench. You have a lot of options to come in and provide sparks. You just need to be able to have your starting five be successful when they're out there and score the points they need to. So I think they're one or two pieces away from being a real contender, but I think they are good enough to be able to be, hopefully in the top six to get that guaranteed playoff spot. But I think definitely in the top 10. But I thought they'd be in the top 10 for sure last year. So you just
Yeah.
never know with the New York Knicks.
No, you don't.
All right. So we've talked a lot. Talked a lot about a lot of different sports. Talked about some football, some basketball, some exciting games this weekend. We talked a little bit about Jets Patriots. What do you think? Who do you think is going to win that game this Sunday?
Jets Patriots. I got to go with the Jets. I mean, I don't think there's anything about the Patriots that's been exceptional outside of their rushing offense, namely Ramondre Stevenson, who's looked like a complete stud. The defense is fine. I think that the Jets defense is scarier in the nature of Halloween. We'll use that kind of language. They're scarier. I think both offenses are not really going to win the game. I think the winner. I think like this is a silly way to phrase it, but I think the loser of the game is really going to be the one who scores less points. Like it's going to be squeaked touchdowns. You know what I mean? So it's whatever defense is going to hold up. I
Absolutely.
trust the Jets more.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially now that you're saying that, I think it's going to be a low scoring game. And, I think that with the way that LaFleur has been a great offensive coordinator for the Jets so far this year with making unique sweeps and things like that, and a lot of movement behind the line. That's what really worked for the Bears last week against the Patriots on Monday Night Football, and how the Bears really dominated the Patriots, which was shocking to see. Now, granted, with Bill Belichick, will he allow that to happen 2 weeks in a row if you do the same type of things? I don't know, but they don't really have that much talent. This Patriots team, they're secondary as usual, very talented, but outside of that, there really isn't much there. I think they're a rebuilding team, like you said. It's a game that the Jets should win, but will they win? They always struggle against the Patriots. It's always tough. And when the Jets are really good and make the playoffs, it's usually a season where they at least win one or two against the Patriots. So I think this will be a real test for them to see if they're ready. Granted, it's odd to say, oh, it's a real test against a rebuilding team, but for the Jets going up against Bill Belichick, it's never an easy task. And, we'll see what happens. I got the Jets, I think, winning 17-16. It'll be a tough, low scoring game. We'll see what happens. Anything else you want to add?
If the Jets win and the Bills lose, the Jets will be winning the division 8 weeks in, which is wild.
Wow.
Wild. Um, Look, Belichick is who he is. And what that is a coach, not a player. Like you said, he's not suiting up. He's not putting the helmet on. If we take Belichick out of the equation, which you can't really do, and you look at this Patriots roster, I feel like nothing really to lead me to believe that they would beat the Jets this week. So naturally, the Jets will probably lose.
Yep. I was going to
And
say, yep.
and we're gonna look really dumb before the next show. So
Yep. So hopefully next time we're on here, I'll say the Jets are 6-2 and looking like they're ready for a playoff run. But we'll see you guys next week. Anything else you want to add before the Jets actually go 5-3?
Nope.
All right. Well, it was a good episode. Thanks for coming on, and we'll see you guys next week.
Goodbye.